Hi there, Isha here, and welcome to the Higher Life, where I unpack concepts considered spiritual, new age, and psychological, esoteric, and help you understand how you can extract the wisdom of these to really lead a truly empowered life. And as I say in the beginning of every episode, right now in humanity, that is actually what is being called for every single human being to actually step up and focus on their own personal empowerment. And here at the HigherLifeAcademy, I actually walk you through a 3-step process, an educational journey, which can actually have you leading your life from personal power and no longer feeling subjected to the institutions and the larger patterns that are going on out there in the human collective. It is such an exciting journey to be on. And in today's episode, I'm touching on a topic that is really core or central to empowerment. And this is being able to understand or discern the difference between beliefs and values. Because when we do this work, when you start stepping up and owning your personal power, what you come to understand is that you're born into a family system, and that family system operates in a culturally created context. That is, wherever you're born in any part of the world, your family operates inside a cultural context. So even though you're born into the family, that cultural context will also become part of your experience. And therefore, the person that we know ourselves to be when we say myself is often what we call a culturally curated self, an ego, a persona that has been raised to be able to operate in the family system and in the cultural context that you were born into. And these systems work off what is called beliefs. That is fixed patterns of thinking and behaving and acting that have each generation kind of replicate the same type of operating model as the generation before. And of course, in larger systems, tribal systems and cultural systems, these belief systems become what we call the collective experience. And then there's an even larger collective experience known as humanity. A value is something quite different. A value is something that is quite intrinsic. That is, we're born with a kind of natural tendency to want to give our attention or to feel resonant with particular ways of being in the world, with particular behaviors or ideas. It's a really strange thing to try and describe a value. And I've been working as a transpersonal, transformational life coach for almost 20 years now. And helping people understand what they truly value is not an easy task. Most of us have not grown up with any predisposition to really exploring who am I through my values. We often take on what we perceive to be the values of our family system or our cultural system or our religious system, and we mistake values for beliefs. So we're usually cultivated, that ego sense of self is usually cultivated by a belief system and not really by values, even if they are presented to you as a value. Now, I thought today to make it, to build off the last episode where I really talked about what's the wisdom in religion. I think that using this example is very powerful because religion as we know it, and as we experience it in the collective, is often driven by beliefs. And we see how those beliefs play out globally, drawing large groups of people together in service of what they believe the right kind of way to live is, and also drawing groups of people into conflict with each other when another person's belief system or religious belief system or cultural belief system doesn't align with your own. And then there's confusion, right? It's, do I stand for my beliefs and therefore fight against these opposing beliefs? Do I let my beliefs go and take on someone else's beliefs? They both feels like you're in a kind of hard spot. People don't really naturally want to fight all the time, and it's exhausting to fight for your beliefs. We all know that growing up in family systems where we're trying to, to become individuated, and then somehow we have to move out of the belief systems that we were raised in order to start developing our own beliefs. But of course, what I would suggest to you is we don't really want to be doing that. What we want to be doing is getting aligned with our natural values. Now, when I looked at the religions last time, I looked at how does each of the major religions that are operating globally that draw in different types of people, what's the wisdom there? If you're not caught up with the actual religion and the story behind it, we looked at how it actually facilitates an inner resourcefulness, like wisdom, or I think we looked at integrity, what was it again? Shadow work with the Catholics. It was a really interesting episode, so go and have a look at it. I found that one really insightful. I make these episodes live, and I don't really know what I'm going to discover when I start speaking to the video about what this topic is today. But this one's been sitting with me since that last episode, because I thought, yes, when we identify with an outer authority, and a religion is an important one because it tries to help shape us who we are as human beings and how we behave in the world. When we identify with those systems and become attached or perhaps coerced by the beliefs that those systems perpetuate, we then become a victim of the system. The authority has power over us. And this is all about personal empowerment. So if we step out of the beliefs and we think, what's the values? What's the value of this system, of this wisdom, of this teaching? And how does the value align with my own values? We start to depersonalize and step out of the rigid thinking that those systems often operate on and start to own it as our own. Now, I was brought up in a family that was very suspicious of religion. We didn't really have any spiritual education at all, religious or non-religious. So I've kind of been in this space where I can take on a lot of different ideas from different religions and explore different spiritual doctrines and not feel attached to any of them. There's no compromise for me. Everything is new. And what I love doing is just taking the wisdom from all of these different disciplines and ideologies and modalities. But what I always come across is they're all speaking to the same thing. We as a human being are made up of patterns, and those patterns are archetypal. That is, we share those patterns with other human beings. Each of those archetypes values certain attributes of being alive. If we look at the warrior, it values courage. If we look at the mother, it values tenderness. If we look at the father, it values protection. These are only one of the values that these archetypes hold. But it's, things that when we give our attention to it, when we cultivate it, it really is empowering, not only for ourselves, but for everyone that we come into relationship with. So understanding what your archetypal profile is and what those archetypes values gives you real insight into your true self. That is your true persona. When I'm talking about a true self, I'm not talking about the universal power source we call God or a higher power, because that is in a way non-personal. So if you go back to that basic source, you're actually losing any sense of personal presence altogether. I'm talking about your true persona, your most natural, authentic self as an individual in this world. And that's where that personal power is going to come through, because you actually are operating out in the world as an individual human being, and you focus your energy and you bring your attention in a very conscious way. Then you're actually very powerful. So, if you're in a conflict with someone and you become aware that this is a conflict, and you step out of it and think, I'm going to take time to seek clarity so that I can come back in a much more stable and calm way, you've exercised your personal power. Now, the other person may not respond in the same way, and you may still remain in a version of conflict, but you have actually taken time to ground yourself and to step out of what would be called a highly reactive state. And this is very important, because in these processes of being in high reactivity, high conflict, you're usually operating out of a belief. A belief that you are right and the other person is wrong, that you are being threatened and the other person is a threat, that you're a victim and they're a perpetrator, or the other way around. You feel guilty because you feel like you've oppressed another person based on their response to you. All of this stuff happens in relationships, and relationships are very triggering. So in order to operate in a relationship in a very effective and skillful way, which is how humans operate relationally, you really do have to have a sense of, who am I? Now, what I might do when I'm in a conflict with someone or struggling in my life is I might ask, what do I value most right now? Me, my true authentic self. And I'd say I most value respect. So in that, I might seek, how can I be more respectful to myself and therefore more respectful to the other in this interaction? I might value tenderness. I might value curiosity. These are all inner resourcefulnesses, states of resourcefulness that every single human being has access to. However, some of us have a more natural access to some of those internal resourcefulness traits than others. For example, I might be more naturally compassionate and my husband might be more naturally curious. This comes down to our archetypal profile. You're born as a natural, authentic persona with strong archetypal patterning. And part of the work of personal transformation is to really focus on understanding who am I through these values of these archetypes. And in doing that, you start to actually become more aligned with your true self, and that ego self, that culturally conditioned self, tends to fall away, or it comes into conflict with this authentic self, and you start to see it for what it is. Our natural tendency is, when we start to realize that we have been, culturally conditioned or socially conditioned, is to react against the society that has been the perpetrator, so to speak, or our family. We feel disorientated, dislocated. We think my family is the source of this problem. Now, family systems actually are the transmitters of all dysfunction and also of all pure potential. So, of course, we are born into a family system that is already operating out of these wounding patterns or ego patterns, and therefore we can't escape it. It's like being born with a virus. It's not your fault that you're born with the virus, but the virus is still present and active. And so now your job is to actually go about liberating yourself from the negative impact of that virus. It is very interesting, but intergenerational trauma really speaks to unresolved immaturity that each system passes through to the next generation, offering that next generation the opportunity to become more mature than the generation past. And that's how evolution happens in the human collective. So a big part of this is the focus of today's lesson. If we can come to face and identify those beliefs that we're operating out of and those institutions that perpetuate beliefs, and then look for the values that are behind those beliefs, we can then dissolve the rigidity that those beliefs perpetuate and become very aligned with the actual wisdom, the values behind it. It's such an interesting space to be in. I did it really last week, and the last time in the episode about religion, I really looked at what's the wisdom, what's the value that they're offering through their teachings if we just let go of the stories that are associated with them. That's where the true power comes. It doesn't matter what field you tap into, whether it's psychology, whether it's the esoteric world, the new age world, you'll still come back with this same message that we need to let go of the stories. Yes, cultures are interesting. They give us diversity and creativity, but they also create a lot of distrust, a lot of disharmony and war, because we become overly identified with our cultural beliefs and our religious beliefs and our personal beliefs that have been indoctrinated into us before we even had a chance to know who we are beyond them. So it's good work to let go of those beliefs for a while and allow yourself to explore, who am I really, beyond what I've been cultivated to be. It's work. You have to really focus on it, and you have to sometimes face up to to that disarming experience of realizing that what you believe may not be true. It is simply a pattern of thinking that creates a certain reality. And that by letting them go, yes, you will be lost and in the unknown and unsure of what's coming next, but you will be the most free you have ever been. And great things can happen. The unknown is an adventure. Really, if you stick to your beliefs, you know what to expect. You're just going to keep recreating the same old, and most of the time recreating and reliving the dysfunctional patterns of your past or your past generations. We see it happening out in the world right now. Old stories just reinventing themselves. It's the same story of distrust, of conflict, of otherness, and it creates the same results. It doesn't matter if the new version of the story, the result is the same. Death, destruction, loss, misery, and despair. So this is obviously not the most empowered way we can live as a human species. We are very powerful, very creative, very innovative, very loving beings, and we have a natural internal resourcefulness that speaks to us through our values and what we value. Now, here at the Higher Life Academy, I've done lots of videos that can help you become more empowered and that explore these topics in many different ways. However, if you're really ready to join the momentum that's happening right now, to really start waking up out of this culturally conditioned way of being and to own your personal power, to restore balance and well-being to our planet, definitely join me over at the Higher Life Academy and check out this 3-step or 3 masterclass journey, educational journey. It will transform your life. That's the intention of it. And that transformation is moving out of that ego small self and becoming your true, authentic, empowered self and living a life then that actually can make a huge, significant positive influence on the world. And I think if you're watching this video, you definitely have that intention in one way or another. So head over to Higher Life Academy, check those out. You can reach out to me here through my YouTube channel or at isharobot@gmail.com. Explore your beliefs. Think about what the values are in your life. What do you truly value? If you don't know, check out the VIA Character Survey at viacharacter.org. You can do a simple free survey and that will give you huge insight into what your values are. So enjoy your day, take on this exploration with vigor, and until next time, take care and love life.